Trauma. Trauma. How do you deal with trauma? That's what I want to talk about this morning. Good morning, everybody. How is it going on this morning? Happy Tuesday morning. Happy Tuesday morning. It was my intent. It was my intent to begin a whole series leading up to Halloween. To give us some backdrop, give us information and some direction with respect to how believers should deal with Halloween. I'm still going to do that. But because of what took place in the region of the country that I live in St. Louis, yesterday in St. Louis, there was a school shooting. There was a school shooting. And you see it all over, everywhere. But until it hits your neighborhood, then it kind of changes things from the headlines to something that is very real. So I want to talk about this morning trauma. Trauma. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Verena. Good morning, Cynthia. Good morning. Good morning, Gloria. Good morning, Angelica. Elder Mobley. How are you on this morning? Good morning, Yvonne. Good morning, Lena. How are you all on this morning? So what I need you to do right now, I need you to share this even right now before I get into the manna, because I want to talk about trauma. Trauma. Put that in, say that to your neighbor, trauma, but say it in a sober way. Put it in the chat area as well. I want to deal with trauma on this morning. Yesterday morning, actually after I finished morning manna, I got a text from one of my life changers, one of my members, one of my spiritual daughters, and she was sharing the school. Her daughter goes to the school adjacent to the school that had the shooting. Read another text and said, "Oh, another one of my life changers. I say my members, the life changers that attend New Life, work security in the school that the shooting was taking place in." Well, let me just share with you. Those are trauma situations, and we need to deal with how do you deal with trauma? How do you deal with trauma? And that's what I want to talk about this morning. I'm going to give you the text, the talk, and the takeaway. But I want you to begin to share this right now because I think this is very, very important. Very, very important. And in particular, I want you to lift up in prayer. Lift up in prayer those whose children were involved, the St. Louis public school system, those in Uvalde, those that just have to deal with this senseless violence in our schools. It makes no sense, but yet it continues to happen. And as a result of that, I think we have to do something, at least speak life into the moment. So let's talk about this morning trauma. Let's deal with trauma. The text, the talk, the takeaway. Here is the text, 2 Kings 4:19. Now, I'm going to be a little longer than typical because I think it's very important that we grab a hold of this. 2 Kings 4:19, and here is the context of the text. The Shunammite woman, you remember the Shunammite woman. You remember what took place. You remember she made a room for the man of God in their house. Now, her son in 2 Kings 4:19 is about to pass away. It's a traumatic experience. 2 Kings 4:19 says this. He said to his father, "My head, my head." His father said, "Carry him to his mother. Carry him to his mother. Take him to where I believe things can turn around." Take him to his mother. Took him to his mother, and within minutes, he died in her arms. If that's not traumatic, I don't know what is. Now, I want you to notice what she did. Let me give you the context of the text. What did she do? She said, she went to her husband and she said, "Now, get me the donkey. Saddle the donkey. I'm going to find the man of God. I made a room. I asked you to make a room for the man of God as he traveled here and there in the Canaanite area. And I need you to get me my car, put some gas in it, if you will. Get this donkey. I'm going to see him." Now, as she goes, her son is dead. As she goes to see him, Gehazi meets her, says to the man of God, Elijah the prophet said, look, there's the woman that fixed the bed. Here she comes. What's going on? What is her response? She says, everything is well. How's everything? She said, it's well. It's well. Everything is well. Now her son is dead. But she believes without a shadow of a doubt, this thing gonna turn around. I'm dealing with a traumatic experience, but I'm going to the man of God. I'm gonna believe that God's gonna turn this around. That's exactly what she says. Now, you know what the story ends. The man of God comes, lays on him, he comes to life. Comes to life. There's so many things that is happening here. Let me give you 3 quick things so that you can understand. How do we deal with trauma? The first thing, understand this. Trauma travels. Trauma travels. Do you realize that trauma gets in your DNA? Generations prior to us, principally our slave history, our forefathers who had a traumatic experience from the motherland to the Middle Passage to the shores of Jamestown, through all the Northern Hemisphere. Now, here we go. That traumatic experience still is in our DNA. So it doesn't take much. People always ask, well, why does African Americans respond the way they do? They're so emotional, so full. No, we still dealing with the trauma of our past. So when things come up and things happen, understand this. Here's the second thing. Trauma triggers. Trauma triggers. So you want to learn, what are your triggers? The traumatic triggers that can pull up from the past or the very present things that are happening. It triggers a word, an action, a deed, causes the trigger to bring it back. That's what's happening. And the woman said, look at here, I got to do something. Here's the third thing I want you to grab a hold of. Trauma can be tamed. Trauma can be tamed. Let's go to the word. Like I said, it just take a little longer than normal because it's very important. This happened right here, impacted some of my members, some of the members that go to my church, life changers. Let me read here. Let me read what's going on here. She says this, run to meet her and ask her, Gehazi, are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is your child all right? What's her response? Everything is all right, she said. When she reached the man of God at the mountain, she took hold of his feet. Gehazi came over to push her away, but the man of God said, leave her alone. She is in bitter distress. She's in trauma. But the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me why. Did I ask you for a son, she said. She said, didn't I tell you, don't raise my hopes? Elisha said to Gehazi, tuck your cloak into your belt, take my staff in your hand and run. If you meet anyone, greets you, do not answer. Lay my staff on the boy's face. You already know what takes place. Trauma can be tamed. Why can it be tamed? How do we know it can be tamed? Here's your takeaway this morning. Because of the trauma of Jesus on the cross. Jesus suffered the most traumatic experience ever. And because of the trauma he took on himself, we can live even in the trauma that we have to deal with day to day. Even in the trauma of a school shooting, even in the trauma of an illness, even in the trauma of a death, the resurrection took place. Things turned around. Why? Because of the faith that the Shunammite and the faith that we should have in dealing with the trauma that we have to deal with in life. The Lord be with you today. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. So we know that Jesus had the most traumatic experience ever so that we might be able to live through the trauma that we have to deal with. Share the manna. Don't keep it to yourself. I'll see you tomorrow morning with more Morning Manna. God bless you.